Good morning, Morai V'Rabotai. We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Samech Bet, going to Samech Gimel now, of Hilchot Kriyat Shema, the last Seif in Siman Samech Bet, Seif Hey, the Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph of regular Dapeh Mishna Berurah, says Sarich Shliach Tzibur La'ashmiya Kolo B'Shema Yisrael, the Shliach Tzibur. We spoke about regular individuals saying Shema, perhaps lachatchila hearing it, Shema Hashma Lo Oznecha, you should hear yourself at least, but Shliach Tzibur should say it B'Kol Ram in a way that people hear it, and also a kind of like unifies the Tzibur together, that they all saying Shema in unison, which is an important part, as we will, I want to read to you a part of Midrash in Shir HaShirim, which is pretty beautiful and powerful. And the Shulchan Aruch says, this way the Kahal could hear the Shliach Tzibur, and they do the Hamlacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu together in unison. So I read to you from Midrash in Shir HaShirim Rabbah, a beautiful piece over here in Parasha Chet, in Dibur HaMatchil, Davar Acher, Hayoshevet Beganim, says the Midrash, Yisrael nichnasim lebatei knesiyot, when the Jews come in Batei Knesset together, vekorin kriyat Shema bekivun hadat, and they say Shema with Kavanah, and they say Shema together in a calm, composed way, not in rush, not everyone doing some other part of it, one rushing, the other one trying to catch up. Says the Midrash, bekol echad, b'da'ah v'ta'am echad, with one voice, with one kavanah, all together, accepting HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship. Says the Midrash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer, Hashem says to them, Hayoshevet Beganim, and this is a play on words of Hayoshevet Beganim, Chaverim Makshibim Lekolech Hashmieni. So he breaks the pasuk and explains it on this kahal that's accepting Malchut Shamayim together. Says, Keshatem Korin Chaverim, when you are together saying Shema, Ani u'pamalya sheli, me and the entire pamalya shel mala of all the malachim, makshivim lekolech hashmieni, we're listening to your voice with thirst. Aval k'Yisrael korin Shema b'tiruf hadat, when the Jews are saying Shema fast in a hasty way without kavanah, zeh makdim v'zeh ma'acher, which one is ahead, one is behind, one is rushing. And they don't have kavanah. Ruach HaKodesh sovachat. Hashem says, Barach dodi v'domeh lecha letzvi or for hayalim. Says like my beloved one runs away from me. So that's something important to keep in mind. Again, Shema is a time that we connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a daily basis, accepting not just His Malchut but His Ola Mitzvot, and remembering the Yetziat Mitzrayim. So we go now to next Siman Samach Gimal, which speaks about reading Shema sitting versus standing or walking around. Can you fall asleep in the middle of Shema? How about if you were dozing off and you said Shema, and so on? Says Maran, and this is from a Gemara that we have had in Masechet Brachot, Daf Yud Amud Bet. Gemara says this: Hakoreh ota mehalech o omed o shochev o rochev al gabe be'ema o yoshev. You could read Shema whether you're walking or you're standing or you're laying down or you are riding on a be'ema or you're sitting down. Aval lo prakdan, but you can't read Shema when you are laying on your back or you're laying on your stomach, on your face. That your face is down to the ground and you're laying flat on your stomach, basically, or mushlach al gabo panav lemara, or you're laying on your back straight and your face is facing up. Those two positions you cannot read Shema. Aval koreh vehu shochev al sido, but you can read it while laying on your side. That you could do. And the Rama, Mishna Berurah, he adds, ma'achar shekvar shochev ve'ika tircha la'amod, because it is already, he is laying on his side. It's difficult to have him get up. We don't require him to get up. so long as he is not on his back or on his stomach. Ve'im haya, Maran continues, ve'im haya ba'al basar, if someone is very large in body mass size, and it's very difficult for him to now go on his side when he is laying on his back, or he's sick and therefore he's in a hospital bed and he has all kinds of different things attached to his body. It's difficult for him to move around. Then you don't have to go completely on your side 90 degrees. You just tilt yourself a little bit to the side and you read, which is again based on the story in the Gemara. Says the Mishna Berurah, Mehalech Ayin lekavan Seif Gimel. We're going to discuss about someone that's walking on the path that in the first pasuk he has to stop and so on. So we'll talk about first pasuk and the difference that has with the rest of Shema just immediately after this Seifim. Prakdan va'afilu muteh me'at al sido gam ken asur. Says the Mishna Berurah, even if you are not completely laying on your back or on flat on your stomach, but you're a little bit tilted to the side, that also is asur for a regular person. Aside short of a person that's chole and bal basar, for a regular person that's asur. Because that's not a kavod. You're accepting all malchut shamayim on yourself. It's not derech kavod to be laying like that. The best would be the more kavod you could give to Shema when you accept all malchut shamayim, the better it will be, of course. Now, even though that the person is mutar for him to say Shema while walking around or riding on an animal or laying on their side and all of that, the Kaf Chaim, Yaakov Chaim Sofer, Alav Shalom, he writes, he's the great grandfather of the current Rabbi Yaakov Chaim Sofer, which is the Rosh Yeshiva of Kaf Chaim. So he writes, She'adif l'krota b'yeshiva, the best way is to sit up with respect and say Shema. So sometimes it becomes very much relevant for us saying Kriyat Shema Shala Mitah. Sometimes, like, you lay down and it's like, you remember, I haven't said Shema, Kriyat Shema Shala Mitah. So you say, okay, once I'm already laying down, let it just be. Let's say the Kriyat Shema Shala Mitah laying down. But the Kaf Chaim says the best way would be just sit up and sit with kavod, proper before you say Shema, and say it with kavanah, with yeshuv hadat, and so on. And Chacham Ovadia writes the same thing, that the more kavod you could give to Kriyat Shema, the better it will be. Now Kaf Chaim adds to this that based on Kabbalah, al pi Kabbalah, there are other reasons that you should say it sitting down, because speaking about the worlds of Sfirot and Ruchaniot, the Kriyat Shema is always connected with Olam HaBriya. Olam HaBriya, we call it Olam HaKiseh. Anything that happens, spiritually speaking, in Olam HaBriya is done sitting. Therefore, by Tefillin, also is Olam HaKiseh and so on. You do it sitting and so on. And he says, the Ben Ish Chai also says the same thing, that because of this, you say Shema sitting down, and not only the Shema, but also the Birkat Kriyat Shema, you say sitting down. That's the reason that you only kiss the Tefillin Shel Yad when you're saying that, because it's Olam HaBriya and so on. So says the one more point on this last thing that we said in the Mishna Berurah. The Mishna Berurah just said that if you're on your back and you're a healthy, thin person, you're not sick, or you're not too large of a body mass to be difficult to go on the side, then you shouldn't do it even if you are tilted. You should completely go on the side if you want to say it laying down. The Chesed La'alafim, Rabbi Eliezer Papo, the author of Yoetz, he writes that even if you're sitting down, you should not do it when you are tilted backwards. In other words, imagine to yourself that you're in one of those sofas that they could be positioned in different positions, and if you tilt it backwards like that, that's not considered proper either, because it's not derech kavod. If a respectful person would come there, would you speak to them like that's derech gava? It's derech srara. Is not a proper way of accepting yoke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's malchut. So therefore, again, this is just giving us some guidelines, but Ishma Chacham Yosif Lekach. Chacham hears this, you could add on to for yourself of how the positioning has to be, how you want to properly accept all Malchut Shamayim on yourself. That's something important. You'll find many people who are makpid that even when they say Kriyat Shema Lamita, they wear their hat because they're saying Shema. Before they get into pajamas, they say their Kriyat Shema Lamita, and then they change into pajamas. This way, they're saying Shema with more kavod, with more respect. So that's something important to keep in mind as well. So it says the Mishna Berurah, Shkvar Shochev, a person that's already laying down, we don't want to be matriach him. The Chafetz Chaim writes, he already has taken off his clothing, right? And if he stands up, then he's going to be half naked. He's under the under the blanket, so to speak, and so on. Therefore, we are not matriach him to get up and go back and get dressed and so on and so forth. But if he is laying down with his garments, or nowadays the equivalent that would be with pajama pants or pajama shirt and so on, then he should sarich lamot, he should stand up. Don't say Shema laying down. If you are covered, you could just sit up. Then just sit up. Says the Mishna Berurah, Benu Yachol, אבל אם יכול על צידו, אפילו רק בפסוק ראשון לבד מחויב לעשות כן. It says, even if the person is not well, or he is a large body mass that it's difficult for him, but if he could turn around completely on his side, even just for first pasuk of Shema, then he's sarich mechuyav la'asot ken. He's obligated to do so. V'chol sheken yachol likrota b'yeshiva. And kol sheken, if you could sit up and read it properly sitting down, that he should certainly do so. So it says the Chafetz Chaim, a halacha that we say in Shulchan Aruch, that you're allowed to do it on your side, or you're allowed to, if you're not well, or if you're a larger person, that you could just tilt yourself a little bit. That's only if you really can't do it if you can't do it on your side, you must do it on your side, at least for the first pasuk, right? And if you could sit up, of course, then you should sit up. This is more serious than you think. So it says the Shulchan Aruch in Seif Bet, Mi sherotzeh lehachmir la'amod kshu yoshev. When if a person wants to stand up when he's sitting down and read Shema standing up, nikra avaryan. He's called an avaryan. In other words, we had in the Gemara a machloket Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel, and the Gemara said this in same place in Daf Yud Amud Bet, that actually Rabbi Tarfon, he wanted to be mahmir like Bet Shammai, and he almost brought sakana upon himself. And Chachamim said, "Kedai hayita lachu b'rashcha." It was kedai to experience the danger because she'avarta al divrei Bet Hillel, because you neglected the words of Bet Hillel. Halacha is like Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai say baboker and Kriyat Shema of the morning you have to stand up, right? Because there's b'shochvacha uvkumecha, and Kriyat Shema of night. Bet Hillel says no, it has nothing to do. But is regarding the timing of Shema, not the position of your body. So therefore, says Maran, if you want to be machmir to stand up when you're already sitting saying Shema, I say no, Shema has to be standing up. That person is called avaryan. You're going against the halacha, which the Mishna Berurah writes, the halacha kebet Hillel, as we pass in Masechet Brachot, Daf Yud Amud Bet, halacha is like Bet Hillel, not Bet Shammai. And when the pasuk says uvkumecha, doesn't mean you have to stand up and say it like Bet Shammai, but it means shederech bnei adam lakum mimitatam. That's the time that people get up from their bed. Ve'asur lo la'achmir la'asot kebet Shammai. It's asur to be mahmir like Bet Shammai, because against the halacha. Ve'afilu im en hakavana Even if you don't have in mind that I want to be machmir like Bet Shammai, you just want to have more kavanah and so on. Even so, says the Mishna Berurah, it is asur to do that. Now, this one is not necessarily very simple. If you are standing up because you're tired, it's the morning of Hoshana Rabbah after a night of learning. It's a morning of Shavuot after a night of staying up, and we want to make sure you don't doze off in the middle of Shema. At the end of the day, this is the ikar. If you're going to be saying Shema half sleep, it's kedai not to stay up the whole Shavuot night or the whole Hoshana Rabbah night, because that's minhag. This is the doraita. So many times the person is tired, after the whole night, even if you took a nap and so on. So you want to stand up to make sure that you say Shema properly and you don't doze off and you don't fall asleep. That the Ben Ish Chai says is fine. The Kaf HaChaim says is fine. No problem with that, right? And if you're standing already when you say the bracha of Ahavat Olam, then Chacham Ovadia says you can stay standing by Shema as well. There's no problem with staying standing. If you're not getting up for Shema, that is fine. And this is, the Mishna Berurah says, both bayom u'balayla, v'afal michen, en tzarich bazeh lachazor v'likrot b'diavad. If you already said it standing up, you stood up for Shema, you don't have to go back and say Shema again, of course. That is pashut. But nevertheless, says the Mishna Berurah, don't do that. La'achmir, katav b'yam Shlomo, the Marshal writes in Baba Kama in Perek Zayin, shemachmir b'fnei rabim b'davar shemutar, if a person is stringent in front of tzibur in some halacha that it's actually mutar, and he wants to be stringent and be mahmir, ika lemechash leyuhara. You have to be careful of yuhara. What's yuhara? Yuhara means something that seems and sounds presumptuous. You're holding yourself in a higher esteem than other fellows in the congregation. That's always a bad idea. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to stick out. You want to be betoch ami anochi yoshavit, says the pasuk. I'm part of my nation. I'm not better than anyone else. My blood is not better than anyone else. And that's the message that you want to send. You don't want to stand out. And says the Marshal, if someone does that, menadinoto. If you tell him and he doesn't listen, you excommunicate him. You put him in nidui. This is how strong the community would deal with someone that is, clearly presumptuous and is not willing to listen. If it's something that the entire Klal Yisrael have accepted as lenient, and this fellow wants to be mahmir, then we don't take it easily. We put him in nidui. But there's an exception. If it's known that this person is a Hasid, this is a Gemara over there in Baba Kama, I think perhaps the Gemara there says that there was someone that was doing something that was mutar, and he was still being mahmir to go on the side of the fields, whatever the sugya is there, and the Amoraim who saw him, one of them wanted to be, put him in nidu. He says it's mutar. What he's doing, publicly showing that is better than the dad. And the other Amoraim says, no, maybe this person is that fellow that is a chassid, and everyone knows that whatever he does l'shem shamayim, and therefore is not a problem. And here's what we paskin as well, that if it's known that this individual is a hasid, he does everything he does l'shem shamayim, and menadinoto, it's not a problem. If somebody is mahmir in front of his rabbi, and his rabbi is mekel on that thing, then you put him in nidui, even if he does l'shem shamayim. That's considered disrespect. What, you think you're better than your rabbi, that he is mekel and you show that you're mahmir? That's not the proper conduct. Again, this is the structures of community. When the community has hierarchy, and there are rules and regulations within the structure of community, it's a healthy thing. Nowadays, people think that you break all the boundaries, and the more mahmir you are, the better it is. It's not true. Every kula, that Mr. Hashem says, needs bedika. When you want to be lenient, you have to do bedika to see if this leniency is viable. And the truth is, it applies to khumrah also. Every khumrah, when you want to be stringent, it needs bedika. You have to know if you're holding in that madriga, right? I always say, you have a mekel and you have a kal. You have someone that is legitimately mekel, lenient, and you have a kal, a person that is a lightweight. It doesn't understand the value of halacha. And then on the other hand, you have a mahmir and you have a hamor, right? You have someone that's legitimately mahmir and you have a person that's a hamor. He doesn't understand. He just he wants to be mahmir in everything. He thinks it's good. It's not good to be mahmir in everything. The Gemara says in Chulin that Morukba, right, the father and son, the father was mahmir to wait between fleshik and milchik all day. The son said, I am chala bar hamra. I am, in comparison to my father, like a vinegar, the son of a wine. That means he would wait that much, but I don't wait. I would only wait from a Sauda to another Sauda. So the question is, what? So you also could be mahmir. He says, no, you can't. The Ben Ish Chai was asked this question of somebody wanting to do this very thing, because Ariya Kadosh also would wait. And Ben Ish Chai was so strongly opposing this. He writes a very, very stark tshuva to this person. He says, who do you think you are? You're not allowed to be mahmir like this. You have to be in a high madriga to be mahmir. You think you could just be mahmir? Even, the Gemara says, I'm not like my father. He was mahmir. I'm not in that madriga, because the chumrah that you keep is a showcase of your closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're so close to Hashem that you are concerned about even the details, more details. The closer you become, the more details you keep. And he was saying that I'm not like my father. I says, Rabbeinu Ariya Kadosh did it, but you know who Ariya Kadosh was? So I was very upset with this person that for even asking the question. So who do you think you are that you want to be mahmir like this? So that's something important to keep in mind, the concept of yuara, not to be or sound presumptuous, not to stand out. Even if it's not so simple, but at the end of the day, your Rebbe, and we're talking about Rabbo Muvahak, he's mekel, then you should not go against your Rebbe and in front of him be mahmir. The Chesed Alafim that we just mentioned, the Yoetz, he writes that, how about your father? If your father is mekel and you want to be mahmir, right? So it says the Chesed Alafim, that's fine because it's kavod for the father. The father always wants his son to be better than him, right? Father says, Baruch Hashem, I did my best. My son is doing better. It's a pride for him. If we talk about Frum, Ben Torah, it says, my limits are limited, and my son is taking it to the next level. That's considered a kavod for him. So it says the Chesed Alafim, that's no problem as long as it's done with kavod, as long as it's done with respect, is fine. But not to do it in front of the public, says the Chesed Alafim, because that already is considered a little bit of a public disrespect to the father, as if, I saw something that I couldn't tolerate. I saw a Ben Yeshiva that was walking, and he was mahmir, not to carry on Shabbat, and he gave his Sfarim to his father to carry with him from the shul. Right? Because he did not want to carry in the Eruv, and father was mekel to carry in the Eruv. I felt there was something so seriously wrong with this, that you're having your father carry your Sfarim for you. Talk about the Bnei Torah, the father is a Ben Torah as well. It's mekel and the Eruv. Like that's not the right conduct. There's something wrong with that picture. And again, putting it in perspective, aside from hashkafic things, right, of kibud avayim and so on, aside from those things, that halachically speaking over here, you're not supposed to, says the US, even if in private you're more mahmir and he knows about it, it's fine. But to publicly go against the thing that he does and be mahmir, that's not something that is proper. He says that's a zilzul to the father, that's a disgrace to the father. It's a ikavod, is disrespect, and it's not the proper thing to be done. Again, you have to see the bigger picture. It's not just I'm mahmir, I don't carry in the eruv. Don't carry in the roof. Don't carry your Sfarim, right? Don't. Your father is not your Shabbat boy to give him to carry for you. So it says, oh, we're out of time. Bezrat Hashem will continue this in the days to come.